ready to organize your amazing ideas into a powerful book? It's time to write your book. Welcome to The Right Hour, nonfiction tips from the right coach with Joyce Glass, where you can learn the business and craft of writing.
Welcome to episode 701. Do you ever meet someone and wonder how do they accomplish everything they do? Today, Nakia Kelley joins us, and you're going to love her fascinating story. She is a multifaceted, faith-filled entrepreneur and servant leader. She's been involved in a startup for dozens of diverse companies. Her entrepreneurial drive began as a teenager in high school, and she moved on to be involved in a wide range of businesses, anything from retail shops to construction to technology development. She's had ventures in accounting and marketing and served many nonprofits over the years in varied positions. She loves her current work in the world of consulting, writing, publishing, and media. As an innovative consultant, publisher, and speaker, she can utilize her creative gifts within many topics to serve others. Those topics often include some of her own personal favorites like faith-based works, nonprofit leadership, social enterprise, entrepreneurship, technology, mindful living, and natural food. Nakia is passionate about encouraging a community of women who write, creating a powerful content in all mediums, and building platforms for women who want to make an impact. Nakia has always been a strong advocate for women-owned businesses through her work with the PA Conference for Women and her love for projects with close friends who are successful women entrepreneurs. She also advocates for children with disabilities and domestic violence awareness anytime the opportunity arises due to raising her two special needs children as a single mom after her own experience with abuse. Nakia can often be found with her kids anywhere near the water in Florida. She has a unique vision for the publishing world. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Season 7 of the podcast, The Right Hour. I'm so glad you're here. And today I'm excited to share with you Miss Nakia Kelley. She has a fabulous story about Change Her Story. So, Nakia, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
I am glad to see you again. We got to see you. Well, actually, first time I met you was in North Carolina. I've heard all kinds of rave things about you from Bethany and Michelle, but I actually got to meet you in North Carolina in August, so that was wonderful. Well, yes, it was. Tell us about you and your journey to the publishing industry, because it has been an interesting story.
Yes. So I actually began, I had an accounting degree and I owned an accounting firm for about 15 years. And while I owned my accounting firm, I've been an entrepreneur at heart ever since I was actually a teenager. I started my first business. And when I got into accounting, it just naturally led into me working with startups. So I worked in the startup world a great deal and ended up partnering with businesses and rescuing a lot of businesses that had kind of gotten startup phase, but it hadn't, as they were reaching the growth phase, they were struggling with things. So I would often invest in companies. And so I ended up being in a very diverse realm of businesses over the course of about 15 years. So I've always loved business, all aspects of business. I am very unique. I believe that God has created me to be very different because I am both right brain and left brain. So I understand numbers and the analytics, and but I'm also very creative, and I love that side of things. So it's kind of an oddball mixture, but it also works very well when you're trying to develop businesses on very low budgets. So we like to bootstrap and do startups. So that led me into when I came to Florida about 5 years ago. Mm-hmm. And when I came to Florida, I wasn't sure what type of business I was going to get into, or if I wanted to now kind of digress back to working for someone. So as I was praying for what the Lord had for me next, I actually heard the word storyteller. So I was like, well, that's very interesting. I thought that the Lord was telling me to tell my story, that maybe I was supposed to be a speaker. And But then very quickly, I fell into the hands of a ghostwriter. So I met this gentleman that was a ghostwriter here in Tampa, Florida. And he had just been ghostwriting books one by one when I met him. And he said, with all of your background and all of the businesses that you've helped develop, do you think you could help me to do some business development for my ghostwriting company, that I could somehow turn this into a business where I'm not just writing one book at a time, but maybe there's some other ways I can make revenue so I can turn this into an actual business. And I was like, absolutely. Let me immerse myself in what you're doing and understand how you're working this. And so then I saw that he was sending publishing out. He was basically outsourcing the publishing end. When he would write a book, right, he would send his authors to a publishing house, a local publishing house, usually a small local publishing house, an indie publisher. And he had done that a couple of times while I was with him, to different publishing companies. And every time the author was not happy and the ghostwriter was not happy. So I saw that there was kind of this situation always where neither party felt really good about the book that was created. He felt like he had done a great job with the ghostwriting, but then when it published, he wasn't happy with the quality of the work in publishing. And I said, well, why aren't you publishing your own books? And he said, I don't know how to do that. And I said, I'm sure that it's a process, just like everything else I've ever done and been able to figure out. I've kind of coined the phrase in the past 15 years that everything is figure outable. So I said, everything is figure outable. And I'm sure that publishing a book is much like the manufacturing process. And I just need to figure out what that looks like. Right. So therefore, I went on a journey to pick the brains of several friends who have published in traditional publishing with big publishing houses. I reached out to them because I came from Pennsylvania, so I had worked in New York City and Philadelphia a great deal, and had some friends who were New York Times bestsellers and had very successful publishing careers, great authors. So I reached out to them and said, tell me about your publishing journey. And they connected me to people that were in publishing in New York. And so I had some conversations with the business development manager of Macmillan, and asked him a lot of questions about publishing. And people were very open and willing to share with me because these were contacts I had made in the past. So I learned a lot over the course of about a year developing this for this ghostwriter. Right. And, so I feel like I did publishing 101 with contacts that I had, and also made a great contact in the Independent Book Publishers Association. So the IBPA then started to also help me to understand publishing. I immersed myself in the industry a little bit, started making some contacts there. And then felt like I really, saw, that's when my eyes started to open up, that I was like, wow, what I was hearing and seeing, there was so much in the publishing industry that really was stagnant. They were saying even when I was talking to the business development manager at Macmillan, he was saying it's a very stagnant industry. The publishing industry hasn't really innovated as much as they should have. They've just kind of been doing it the same way. And then Amazon came into the picture and just kind of really, it wasn't innovative. It was just kind of it threw a wrench in what was already stagnant. Right. Right. He said it did not help us in a good way. In the industry, it did not help the industry in a positive way. They felt like Amazon had really just kind of taking it the other direction. So I started to learn all these really great things about the book industry and the publishing industry, as well as the book selling industry. So I kind of immersed myself in that. And so during this journey with the ghostwriter, I learned publishing. I kind of tested out things I was learning. I helped him develop a publishing wing to his business, which then made him more profitable, which was, made him very happy, but I was working for him. Right. So I was like, why am I doing this for somebody else? My business brain can't really handle that. It's tough for me. And so I was like, I really think I need to go into publishing, as a business. And so I ended up partnering with a woman in Tampa to start my first for-profit publishing company. And when I'll try to keep this like the shortened version, but when I partnered with this woman to run a for-profit publishing company in Tampa, we tended to disagree about things as far as money and finances were concerned, because she wanted to charge a very large sum of money to every person that came in the door. And this is where my servant's heart started to ache because what I saw, because we were two women in business, we attracted a lot of women who came to us. A lot of women came to us wanting to publish books. Just, they were so vulnerable, and they would walk in to a meeting with us with, pictures and their manuscripts and I felt like their heart on the pages, right? And I could see it in their face. Like, here's my book I've been working on for 10 years. For 10 years, I've dreamed of this book. And the lady that was my partner was like, do you have any money? And they would say, I don't have a lot of money right now. And she'd say, well, then I don't know if we can help you. And that was so frustrating for me because I literally could feel their pain. Like, I could feel that they just wanted to be heard. So I feel like God was showing me again and again through the time, like this again was happened over the course of a little more than a year. I would see these women that were just so vulnerable and just their voice hadn't been heard, and they really just were trying to process and work through something. So I started praying about it fervently. I said, God, I don't really understand how I'm supposed to work in the midst of this. You're going to have to show me what I can do here. Like, how can I make a difference in these women's lives? Because, telling them no defeated them, and I hated to see that. But, we couldn't tell them yes all the time as a for-profit company because they had no money. And even my partner wasn't willing to even cut the pricing down. So it was a frustrating time for me, but I just felt the nudge at that point to do something in this realm that was different, that really could be a support and an encouragement instead of defeating women. I wanted to lift them up and make them feel good about getting whatever was on their heart into the world. So that's what led me to publishing. Really, it was that journey.
So is that where Change Your Story came from then?
Yes, that is really where it came from, because after that was for-profit. And then there was a slight journey there where, I spent a lot of time seeking the Lord's guidance on, how do I do this in in something that isn't money driven? Right. So that we're not always seeking the profits, that it's not about the bottom line, that it's not about, I need you to sell 1,000 books or else. I had heard so many horror stories from women after I got into the industry of women just giving up. I watched a woman write a check from her retirement accounts. And women were so vulnerable and wanted it so bad. They so desperately wanted to just bring that dream to fruition of making a book that they pretty much would have done anything.
Yeah.
I did not like watching that happen.
I see that. So tell me the mission for Change Your Story, because that's, for those listening, that is Nakia's company or organization, I guess you call it.
Yeah.
And how does Change Your Story help women? Because obviously that was your heart. You saw that as a big problem. And then you said, this is how I can solve that problem, which you said was a journey to get there, which it always is. But tell us a little bit about that journey and your mission and how you can help women.
So I originally did not immediately connect the dots that as soon as I graduated college and as soon as I got my degree in accounting, I worked in nonprofit. Coming straight out of school, I worked for the state system of higher education for about 6 years. So I had been given, the Lord had literally given me a nonprofit background, and I have off and on been in the nonprofit sector ever since then. And I've always had a heart for a nonprofit because I love the way that nonprofit helps people. I have
right
by nature. So when I left the for-profit partnership, I landed not by mistake in helping a nonprofit because I was kind of distraught about how do I work in books and not have this defeating purpose all the time for women. And so someone through a friend of a friend said, hey, can you come help this nonprofit? There's a nonprofit that needs some tax-related help. And I said, absolutely, no problem. They said, I know you have a background in accounting and you've worked in nonprofit, so this, you could probably really help these people. And I said, absolutely. I stepped into this nonprofit, and I was actually just telling this story the other night. Somebody was like, I can't believe God worked that out. I stepped into this nonprofit just to help with some taxes. Mm-hmm. And within about 6 to 8 weeks of me helping them with taxes, there was a federal search and seizure. And the federal agents came in, did a full search and seizure on the nonprofit, took all the records, took me into a back room, and the lead investigator said, we've already checked out your background. We know you're not part of what's going on here. He said, do you know what's going on here? And I said, well, about 3 weeks into this, I started to see some things that were concerning to me. I'd seen cash being, some cash sliding through the nonprofit that were going in the pockets of people. And I had already had some thoughts that maybe I needed to report what was happening there. I was looking at the books, and I do have the privilege of being a numbers brain. So I had solved problems and was noticing the problems. And this gentleman that's a lead investigator said, yeah, he said, I assumed that you probably were already picking up on what was happening. And he said, so we had a little bit of an extensive conversation about the problems that were happening in the nonprofit. And he said, nonprofit. And when he said, nonprofit, I tell everybody, it was almost like Thor stepped into his voice, because I heard,
that's funny.
I heard that so loud and clear when he said it, that I knew it was God, bringing it to my attention. He was saying, you've been equipped with it.
This is a play.
You already know nonprofit. You know how to run nonprofit. I've given you nonprofit skills. It's where your heart is. Why aren't you doing books and nonprofit? So really from that day forward, I just knew what I was on mission for. It was confirmation to me that this was exactly where we needed to go. So I started from that point on just praying and seeking the Lord on what that would look like. So we knew we were doing nonprofit. That nonprofit really connected me to Change Her Story and designing what it is today. However, I did not see that we would, this really the infrastructure has been fully designed by God, because, we thought we were going to publish books nonprofit. That was pretty much what we thought we were doing, publishing books in a nonprofit, under a nonprofit umbrella. Mm-hmm. That the focus wouldn't be on the profits, that we would do it for very low cost or no cost. And that was just kind of the mission. We had no idea that it would be, now what has been created is way more than I could have ever thought or imagined. We ended up with we have a social enterprise bookstore. Mm-hmm. Our social enterprise bookstore is a woman author only bookstore, and the books are all donated. So all of the books in our bookstore our inventory is no cost to us, but it raises all the funding for the women who we run writing programs, and we also publish books for women. So it helps to create all the funding is our social enterprise bookstore. So we are now classified as a social enterprise nonprofit, which has garnered us a great deal of attention this year. We were chosen as one of the 15 to be in a cohort at the Social Enterprise Alliance in February. We were chosen among hundreds of social enterprises, and the Social Enterprise Alliance said this is the most viable, sustainable social enterprise they've seen this year. So
wow.
They've been backing us, and we just came back from Chicago, where we spent. They took us out to Chicago and took us to the South Side with some of the very successful social enterprises in South Side of Chicago. And we sat with executives and learned more about what looking at our infrastructure and, making sure that we're making all of the right decisions now to keep us completely sustainable for the future. So we don't rely strictly on donors and private funding. The hope that the Social Enterprise Alliance has is that our next step will really be that we get employment grants, because we also want to we do a lot of work. We don't classify that we only work with women in recovery, but we work a lot with women in recovery. So women that are recovering from everything from addiction, prostitution, human trafficking, domestic violence, women in recovery, we work with a lot in our writing programs. Yeah. So we also would like to eventually be able to design training programs that allow these women to work in the fields of writing and publishing, because there is great opportunity for remote work for women who are in transition. And so that they're saying that they would, the next step for us is really, they want to get us, we need 2 years under our belt, and then we will be able to qualify for employment grants.
That is wonderful. So let me clarify, because some people are probably thinking the same thing as me. So you have the social enterprise where the books are donated. That supports the ministry, I call it.
Yeah.
The organization to help women publish their books. But then you've also got the other part. Explain to me a little bit the other part where you're talking about where you're helping women who are writing, that kind of thing. I'm not real clear on that part.
So we have, we run writing programs inside of we're partnering with other organizations, such as human trafficking organizations, women's prison ministries, even some church-driven recovery programs. We actually are just looking at right now. We started doing this kind of informally, just like putting writing programs together, and now we're working on a curriculum. So we're going to have our own Change Her Story curriculum, which will always be free. So any organization that wants to feature a writing program from Change Her Story will be able to call us, and then we will vet them, and we will form a partnership with them to administer our writing program in their organization. Oh. So like, for instance, Cherished LA, which is out of Los Angeles, Kate Waddell is right now doing a writing program that is something we talked about. And then I'm working with Thistle Farms out of Nashville. They have residential transitional housing all over the country. They also are talking about administering these writing programs. So we will continually partner with organizations that serve women, and they will be able to take this curriculum, and we have a leadership manual that will guide them into how to use the curriculum and put a writing program in place for these women and teach women how to use writing to heal and restore. So we always say one of the mottos we have is that we give women space and grace to write. So there's never any agenda. Like we're not trying to sell them publishing packages, or we're not trying to push them into anything. It really is just about, we want God to be able to work through the writing. I have women that have written everything from songs to poetry to short stories to even screenplays. And, sometimes women just, the writing tends to be very healing. So
it is. That's how I had some healing. That's essentially how I started my writing journey too. When my son was little, I went through this, I was a stay-at-home mom. I had been working full time, and just life was like 90 to nothing. And all of a sudden it felt like life went, everything stopped. And I'm like, okay, who am I? What am I supposed to do? But I went through that phase of, there is more to life than diapers and dishes, right? Please tell me. and I'm one of these, like you, I'm creative, and I had to keep my brain going. And I started diving into personal development and journaling, and the journaling led to writing, and the journaling helped with the healing, and just thinking through things that I had not really taken time to think through because I was so busy being busy, working and going to school and everything. So I totally get how that can be therapeutic for someone who's been through something traumatic or very hard in their life. And then that, no telling where that can go. But like you said, that gives them that space and grace for healing. I love that.
Well, and that's what we never know. In these organizations, these are a lot of women that are like newly found freedom, right? So like their pain points are very raw and real. And sometimes I find that women are the most creative, like in that time, right? Because it's like their journey, they're really having to work hard to journey through something. And I want to encourage them to use that. So what we see is that kind of now is starting to flesh out some women who really have these tremendous writing gifts. Mm-hmm. And it's kind of been suppressed by what they've been going through. So, this tends to bring it out in them. So we always say, like, we're trying to give leaders guidance also on, if you see someone that you feel like has a gift, like, let us sink in there and also bring those gifts kind of to light. Like we're like the vessel for God's gifts, to be able to bring them to light and to bring them into the writing space and connect them to opportunities, because that's what we're seeing.
That is wonderful. Yes. So how do you help women authors? So you're going to help women who are been going through things with your writing programs, and you've got the social enterprise that supports all of this. So now explain in a little more detail how you help women authors.
Okay, so our publishing house basically it's still under the nonprofit umbrella. So we have classified ourselves as a hybrid publisher. Mm-hmm. So in the field, sometimes known as a pay-to-play kind of model, which gets a bad rap sometimes, I think, but it depends. I believe I've seen a lot of really great hybrid publishers. However, what we wanted to do was we thought we could come in as a hybrid publisher instead of a traditional publisher. And that would give us also the bandwidth to be able to take on, we have our book that is about to release from Jen Gruber. Jen was she's someone who has experienced crisis in her life and has faced adversity and gone through abuse and had those experiences, but it's far behind her. And she's now she's become a very successful entrepreneur. She's a very successful speaker. She's an international speaker. So we have some women who are like, I went through that at one point, but now I don't need you to pay for this. Like I can fund my own publishing, but I can pay for it. But at the same time, I want to publish there because what we have in our publishing house is no royalties, but we have a give back. So we don't have a royalty structure. Instead of have a royalty split, we ask that every woman commit to a 25% give back to the general fund, because when a woman commits to that, she's just helping the next woman behind her get a publishing contract. So women that can afford to publish, who are like, I have platform, I'm successful, I don't even need a traditional publisher, because traditional publishers are not really doing as much these days to market and sell books. Somebody like Jen comes to us and says, hey, I have platform, I know I could sell books, I just need someone to publish my books from now on. And if I can publish my books there, and I know that I'm helping these other women who need me to reach down and lift them up, I want to be that support. So we wanted to be a hybrid so that we could have a low cost, low barrier to entry cost for publishing for women who, because we only have so much funding, we have to choose. So, if it's a matter of you come to us and you say, I can afford to pay to publish with you. And I would really like to do that because I know what you stand for. We're not for profit. So we're not looking to cash in on even that publishing package. Really what we did was we designed a package we knew would cover cost. Right. So we're looking to cover cost, but also give more women opportunity to be in this community. And it's such a beautiful thing that God has designed, because now we see the way God designed this community is the women that are in the community, whether they are women coming through trauma and transition or they are super successful women, they're helping each other. They're supporting each other in this journey.
Which is perfect. I mean, that's a great way to do that because I see how that circle can help, each other. It's a win-win,
It's a win-win all the way around.
Bring up those who have a gift but maybe don't have the finances, and those that have the finances but want a way to, a method to get it out to the masses. You're there for both. So that is beautiful.
Totally connecting whatever. We really believe that God designs it. So, we see that God just connects the dots, even in the community. He brings the right women at the right times, and they're able to, help each other and lift each other up. It's a women helping women situation all the way around, which is so beautiful. And that's why I say it has become so much more than what we ever thought or imagined it would be. We didn't see these components even coming. Like, we had no idea that it would be this community of tight-knit women who are loving each other and helping each other. And even the aspect of, like, we talk about, I get a lot of attention now from the Social Enterprise Alliance featuring us as one of the 15 social enterprises. And they're constantly kind of using their bullhorn to talk about how amazing what we're creating has been. And, I'm able as a nonprofit to get all kinds of attention that we didn't even expect. We were like, we're getting attention for being a nonprofit and a social enterprise and for the good work that we're doing in the world.
Right.
We're able to shine the spotlight on the Lord, first of all, like to give God all the glory for what's happening here, but at the same time, lift the women up. Like it gives us like that extra added layer of these books are being produced under this umbrella. So, they get the attention from what Change Her Story is getting. And we always say we have a very strict rule that our goal is it's not about us. Like, nothing that we do to Change Her Story really is about us. It's really all about giving the glory to God. We really are here to be in service to others. Like, we're not ever focused on like, what's our bottom line look like, or we would need to make it bigger profits or any of that kind of stuff. We're really trusting God in all of that. So really, ultimately what happens here is it just continually keeps getting blessed because we are not being selfish about anything. And we really want the women to feel that like, it's really not about self, it's about others.
Right.
So we also have a strict rule that we don't do bios for our authors. We do mission statements. What's the impact you're going to make on the world? We don't want your resume. We want to know what you're going to do to change the world.
Yeah. I love that because what you're talking about is more of a movement than just a publishing house. You're not just a publishing house. There's so much more, like you said, to it. And it's one of those, like you said, cool things that God brings all this stuff in and you had no idea. Like, I just started walking this direction and then this other stuff happens and it's wonderful. I love that.
It's literally been out of obedience that everything kind of flourishes because we believe that we pray and we give it to God and then God kind of guides us. And I was just actually this past week, I was at an event here in Tampa called the Innovation Gathering, and there's a governmental organization called the Innovation Alliance, and they're developing an innovation sector in Tampa. And I had told one of the guys that actually is in charge of that, that my long-term goal, like my 5-year plan, was to open an all-women ran printing press. I said, we want to take it to the next level where like not only do we publish books and we write books, but we also manufacture books.
Oh, that would be awesome.
I would love to put women into a printing press and let them learn the trade of manufacturing books. Like, it's just another way that we'd be able to put these women, I can put these women in a trauma-informed employment situation and give them grace and prayer and cover them, even in a printing press. How amazing would that be? And so that was a long-term plan for us. And the Innovation Alliance just told me this past week that they're on a mission they want to give us space to make that happen. Like, they are on a mission to bring that. They want that printing press housed here in Tampa. And because there was some talk in Nashville about it, and they were like, no, we don't want it to leave and go to Nashville. We want it in Tampa so that all the light comes on Tampa. And they were like, we're going to find you commercial space to do this. Like, they want to give us space to make the printing press happen, which I was like, look at God. Like, I just told them our idea. And
there's some other stuff that's been going on behind the scenes that a friend of mine's talking about that I will talk to you when we're done, that goes along right with what you're talking about. So I'm so excited to hear this idea. So tell us, if someone wants to work with Change Your Story to publish their book, what do they need to do?
Just make a submission. First of all, you have to submit. We don't really look like, we're very different when we choose women. We don't need like the formal book proposal. We don't need your agent. We actually, don't tell Kyle this, but we're not like sold out on agents, because we're really choosing based on the woman. Like,
right.
We're choosing more based on that God is bringing you to us, and that it's a bigger picture. You're supposed to be part of the community. Mm-hmm. It's not really about the book. So, there is a submission. There's a submission form on our website, which I'll get you a link to. They actually just made it live, I think, yesterday, finally, because everybody's been doing submissions to my email, which I was like, if I get like 50 submissions a week, I was like, if I get any more submissions to my email, I'm going to lose my mind, because it's hard for me to go through them now.
Right.
I get so many emails. Like today, when Jen was on Yahoo, and then everybody's emailing me like, we heard about this. Somehow they're finding us. So, it gets buried in like the PR and everything else. So I'm like, the submissions being in my email has not been a good thing, but it's grace, because we are new and we are learning.
Growing pains.
It's my growing pains. Yeah. Cause I really had no idea this thing was like, I was like, I had an idea, like everybody always, I had an idea that I felt the Lord placed on my heart. I had no idea that we would look like this today before 2019 isn't even over yet. Like, and the things that have happened, I'm always like, oh, God, you are just amazing. He's always just amazing me. Mm-hmm. So the submissions form just went live, and that is now where I will be guiding everybody, because I just said to our website developer, I was like, praise the Lord, I can send out a link from now on.
Exactly. No, do not send me another email.
So it's really cool, though, because the submissions process just asks you a couple of quick questions that, because, you have to, in our house right now, you have to be a woman author. We do nonfiction. We do not do fiction books yet. I always say, for the women that are doing fiction, I'm like, you can send me the fiction. And I'm trying to put together, but it's really hard because people don't realize how many, there are so few women-owned publishing houses. So I'm also trying to, eventually I want us to be a resource for also like passing off to other women.
Right.
So we can continually develop the industry of women-owned publishing houses. Right. So we do nonfiction, and we also do, the only place that we do fiction is in children's books. We do some fiction children's books. So it'll ask you some questions like, are you a female author, and is your book nonfiction, and take you through that. And then it allows you to submit a document, which the document doesn't have to be your book proposal. The document can literally just be, a little bit about you, or, an idea you have for a book, or just, we don't require anything really formal. We want to get to know you. And when you submit, then we do an actual face-to-face interview by Zoom, so usually with me and a board member. So we always do an interview. There's always an interview process.
Wonderful. Yeah. So a little less stressful. I mean, some people might get stressed out about an interview. But think of it as a get to know you conversation is what I call it, right?
Yeah.
But that is a great way for someone, especially if they're new to the writing world, to get introduced into it and take it from there. So you were telling me, I'm sorry, go ahead.
There's something else I wanted to say about that's also a thing that makes us very, very unique and very different, in that sense is I always say to the women, like the women that are new writers, this could be a great first step. Like I see where Change Your Story could be your first great step in, you might do one book with us. We don't hold rights. We also are very different that way. We do not hold rights. We have no desire to hold rights. We really trust the Lord in everything. So it would be really silly of us to write into a contract that we're going to somehow hold you into our community. So we don't hold rights to anything. So if you published a book with us and then you said, hey, the Lord's telling me to like go redo my book with this other traditional publishing house, we're going to say, we love you. We wish the best for you. And we're not going to question that. And there's no reason why a woman can't publish her book the first time with Change Your Story and then go publish her book with other publishing houses. We are always going to be encouragement and support is our main goal.
Yes, I love that. So before we got on, you told me that you are actually writing a book too, to share the Change Your Story. So tell us a little bit about your writing time. Is it a consistent time? Do you write daily? What's some things that work for you and don't work for you with your writing time?
Well, I will say that I do not write as much right now because it's been very busy and kind of chaotic around here. There's a lot going on. But when I was spending more time writing, I would typically, I love to write when I travel. Like I found writing, because I travel a great deal now. I find that being on the plane is a great time for me to travel. I mean, being on the plane gives me great writing time. I also, I was actually writing, sitting at the gate, waiting for my flight to go to Los Angeles this last time. And I was so into my writing, I didn't realize that I was at the wrong gate. Like I was sitting at the gate writing, and it was actually I was supposed to be at the gate behind me, and they were already lined up. I looked up and everybody was lined up getting on the plane. I almost missed my plane to Los Angeles just for I was like, oh my gosh.
That's the bad part when you get so engrossed. I've done that before. She's like, "Oh, hold on, gotta go."
So I find those to be great spaces to write in. And outside, I have recently, like when I was writing a lot more, I was also finding like I would go to the park and sit at the picnic table with my laptop, and I found outside to be even more inspiring for writing. I don't know why. Like I was really enjoying just being in the outside space. And there was something about being in that outside space rather than at my desk that was, that also felt just very freeing to me.
Right.
I will tell you, for the women that we work with, this is not personal, but the women we work with who were trying to get, the women who are having trouble finishing and getting to their deadlines, we lock them in a room.
Maybe you should put them at a picnic table.
We actually bring them twice now. We have brought them to the Safety Harbor Resort and put them in a hotel room and taken away the phone and literally just helped them walk through like the finishing of things. And that has worked really well for us. Like when Jen Groover was finishing her book, we did 2 whole days of nothing but writing. Like she wasn't allowed to like spend time on anything else. From morning to night, we would eat in between writing, and that really has worked, like that focused writing.
Yeah,
we were able to knock out, several chapters and finish pieces and parts that we needed to in 2 days of just being in a hotel room. And
I've heard one lady, she goes on a cruise and she'll write all day and then she'll do fun stuff at night. And go to dinner and stuff, but that was her thing. And there's days when you're just cruising too, so there isn't a whole lot going on. And I said that might be a cool idea. For me, I think I would rather have like a cabin in the woods where I could go, and when I need a break, just go outside and look at the mountains and take a breather.
We do a little bit of that. Like going, because the resort is right next to the ocean, so like you walk outside and you're at the waterfront, so you can go outside and you can walk by the water and just take a minute. And we really accomplished both times. It has been super successful for us to finish things. So these were people that already had started, but they just needed to like wrap it up to meet the deadline. And
sometimes you need that. You need that last little push, because I talk about the messy middle a lot when I talk about writing, where you get to that point where you're like, am I ever going to get done? You know, you've made a lot of progress, but there's still quite a ways to go. And you just need that last little, okay, go, get done. So, and even with my clients, I've had to do the same thing. I'm like, you're almost done. You're so close. Keep going. You know, we can get this done. So that really helps.
Yeah, that's worked out awesome for us. So we really I love the aspect. That actually has inspired us to do small writing retreats. We're talking about doing that next year, like where we don't want them to be too big.
I want to do that too. I live on Lake Sinclair and I've got a couple spare bedrooms, and I thought, have a little writing retreat. That would be fun. So
yeah, it's like
have food catered in, so I wouldn't be dealing with food.
I'd be concentrating on writing.
Yes, concentrate on writing. But I love that idea. You need to let me know when you do that. What words of advice or encouragement do you have for new writers, or maybe someone who's been writing but they're struggling to write their book right now? What are some things you can do to encourage them?
Well, we often tell the women that are specifically writing for book purposes, then they're not because we have both. We have some women just writing for, free writing for no specific purpose, but the women that are writing specifically for books, we tell them to act like they're free writing. Even though they're book minded, we're like, forget that it's a book. Just let God pour out on that paper, and don't get technical about it. It doesn't have to come out. We don't need it to come out perfect. We just
Nobody does. Nobody writes a perfect manuscript.
Yeah, you'll never, even if you try really, really hard, it's still going to need work. So we need your voice. We need to hear from you, because there's a lot we can do with it once we have your voice, but we can't recreate your voice. That's really hard to do. So we say just, get out of your headspace and just listen to your heart. Like what's God telling you? Sometimes I tell women, even if funny things that don't make any sense come to mind, like if your mind starts wandering, put that on the paper. Like sometimes we get great content out of that. Like,
yeah, definitely. That's what I tell people all the time, was editing and writing are two different activities in the brain. Editing is analytical, writing is creative. If you try to do both at the same time, you will drive yourself insane.
You'll never get anywhere. You just get stuck. That's how you get stuck.
Exactly. But when you just write and let it come out, then you can go back and make it pretty and organize it and take stuff out and add stuff in, that kind of thing. So definitely, I love that, to just act like you're free writing. And so I'm in the middle of a 5-day challenge right now with my clients. Well, it's my group, my Facebook group. And that was yesterday's assignment, was just to free write for 15 minutes about your idea, and people were like, wow, that like really helps, and it's like, it's a simple activity that really helps.
Oh my gosh, I know. And then we also tell them to bust out the voice recorder, and like if you just had a really great conversation, like you were in a meeting and something inspired you, like, or you just came out of church or some service or something, and you're feeling really inspired and like you feel like God's talking to you, I always tell them, like, bust out your phone and start just recording what's coming to mind. That brings out really great content. You just never know.
Yeah. And then it's easy to go back to when you're ready to write and go, oh yeah. And then you start writing about it and some other ideas will start flowing. So it really is good. Well, I love that advice. Well, Nakia, it has been wonderful to talk with you and hear about what you're doing with Change Your Story. It is a fabulous ministry and just idea that is blowing up, and things that God's doing is wonderful. I love it. So I appreciate you being here, and I will definitely have all your links that you send me for everybody in the show notes, and they can learn more about you there too. So appreciate it.
Thank you so much for having me. You're such a blessing. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Thank you for listening to this episode of The Right Hour. Are you wondering how to start your writing journey but feel overwhelmed or confused? After taking 4 years to write her first book, Joyce completely understands. She created the 4 steps to the right book to help you clarify your focus, create and organize your content, and complete your book. She shares tips on the writing process, and you can download the Writing Planner to track your progress and create weekly and monthly milestones to complete your book. You can sign up for the short email series at therightcoach.biz. That's TheRightCoach.biz. Or go to the link in the show notes for the podcasts. You can sign up on the side pop out on the computer, or on the phone, it's a blue bar at the bottom that pops up. You can also go to the bottom of the homepage to sign up for the 4 steps to the right book. Don't let fear and overwhelm stop you from writing your book. It's time to write your book.